All right, let's begin. I want to welcome everybody to this evening's general meeting. Apologize for being a few minutes behind. We'll call the meeting to order. We have a council attendance, moment of silence, council agenda acceptance, rules of order, follow up from the last meeting. We have a couple presentations this evening. We'll be introducing our new Director of Health, as well as we'll have an honoring this evening of a community member. We'll have a presentation on the Ogre Bridge corridor improvements, as well as an update on the Gisnina Administration Building, which is proposed here down at the School Road. We'll give an update on the Office and Election Law, as well as an update on the Chiefs of Ontario Wealth Creation Proposal. That will be on a presentation. We'll provide an update on roads, some of the lobby efforts that are ongoing to meet the road needs within the districts. We'll have business from the floor, a resolution, announcements, as well as the next general meeting announcement will be made. Right now, we'll do an attendance call. We have Dennis Shosi, who is unable to join us this evening. April Adams Phillips has a sick member of her family who's not able to join us. Chief Ryan Jacobs is attending on behalf of council graduation ceremony in the city of Cornwall. And I think that's it. That's the attendance. So before we accept formally, I will, it's been our protocol over the last 2 years that we observe a moment of silence for those members of the community that we've lost since the last general meeting. We have a cancellation protocol, and we want to acknowledge those members who have passed. Send our condolences to all of those affected by grief. So I'll ask for a moment of silence. Thank you. All right, I've read out the agenda. If I could have a mover to accept the agenda, moved by Tim, second by Joe Lazor. All in favor? All right, thank you. And just so you know, as a matter of protocol, we do record our general meetings now. There is a microphone that I do have on, we'll use for some of the presentations. On the, more so on the feedback that we've gotten from the people who are watching the video, they're not able to hear the presentations, so the microphone is feeding into the recording so that those who are watching at home are able to hear the presentations. So we'll go through the rules of order. So this evening we have, we'll ask that everybody please be respectful of one another. We'll start the meeting at approximately 6 p.m. till about 8 p.m. We ask that personal issues not be dealt with in the public forum. Any personal issues that you'd like to raise, we'll take it back for one-on-one between either members of council or appropriate people of the MCA to discuss those issues. If you have any questions or comments, we ask that you please raise your hand. I'll start a list of the speakers or questions. I'll acknowledge you prior to you asking a question. We ask that the questions please remain relevant to the presentation. There is an opportunity later this evening, the business from the floor, that we can talk about issues generally, but we ask that you please keep the questions related to the presentation. That way we can move along. Some people may have time limits and want to hear information specifically about the presentation. So we do log follow-up items from each general meeting. So if there are issues that council is asked to follow up on, or questions that you would like to have addressed, we do log those and we report them back at the next general meeting. So we'll continue on doing that, which is actually follow-up from our last general meeting. There is in the packages that you have, we've made a couple copies. We are trying to reduce the amount of paper that we use, so we have the package here electronically on the presentation as well. Any of the material this evening we can make available to you either in paper form later on or electronically through email or other means. We're just really trying to reduce the amount of paper that we use at our meetings. And you'll notice that over the last couple of months, we have members of council that use iPads. That's because the document that you see here is downloaded onto there so that we're not carrying big packages around. So Before we move on, I do just want to acknowledge that we do have two people in the audience this evening who are not members of our community. One of them is the Director of Health as well as our Executive Director of the Mohawk Council. I just want to acknowledge them that they're not members of Akwesasne, but for a matter of protocol. So. But with that, I will move on to our first presentation. And we wanted to give the community an opportunity to meet our newly recruited health director, Keith Leclerc, who is joining us here with the executive director. And we just wanted to introduce him to the community, give him an opportunity to introduce himself to you, tell you a little bit about his background, and we welcome him aboard. So we'll turn it over to you. No, that's fine.
Background-wise, volunteer. I was a member of the Community Fire Group for 29 years. We have a fire department certified. I was for the last 28 years in the regional lobby. I was able to work with the emergency medical service. I was in the water, but I am looking at some of the strengths that we have to do this work. Nationally, we have 10,000. A lot of our children are doing this. I think we want to really listen to this. What's happening in the country. Those are some of the things that I know that are really important. I do want to say that I'm so honored to be here. everybody else is privileged time. The reality is, and I hope that I can and coming up with you, one of the things I do want to do is this place is kind of really where all of the associations are coming together in a group, and we will realize that August and in fact do that passionate. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Keith. So as we mentioned, we wanted to give an opportunity for the community to meet the new health director for Mohawk Council and give him an opportunity to tell you a bit about who he is. And you've heard him extend his invitation to all of you to meet with him at any time at the Guanaguatzilio Health Facility. So Keith, on behalf of council and the community, welcome aboard. Thank you. All right, so we'll move along. We did have the follow-up action items from the last general meeting. Unfortunately, they are in your packages this evening, but the printing for the actual follow-up hasn't been put on the report, so we'll have to defer that until next month's general meeting. I apologize for that. So, our next presentation, I'm going to turn over to Chief Troy Thompson to give a bit of background on the presentation and then call forward the community member in which we'll be honoring this evening.
Good evening. The Mohawk Council of Wakasasan created a book of accomplishments called Yokoguanyo, which means we accomplished it, to document and celebrate significant and noteworthy accomplishments of the people of Wakasasan in the realm of academics, sports, art, culture, environment, etc. from 2015 onward. We have some really incredible athletes here in Wakasasan who are traveling all over the world and the continent to compete at the highest levels. The North American Indigenous Games is just around the corner, and we have 52 athletes playing 8 different sports, and I'm confident many of them will win the gold. We are extremely proud of them all. Tonight we honor Nolan Parents for his accomplishments in wrestling. His list of accomplishments are very impressive. He's the 2015 New York State Division champion at the Senior Central School. That's the first one. He's the 2014, 15, and 16 silver medalist at the Junior Women's Canadian Freestyle Championships. He's the 2014, 2015, 2016 gold medalist at the Junior Men's Canadian National Greco-Roman Championships. He's the 2016 gold medalist at the Junior Pan American Championships. He finished 3rd place at the 2016 University Greco-Roman National Championships. He's currently wrestling at the University of Buffalo and has a record of 28 and 12. And last year he made All-American honors. And he was also 2016 Canada Cup silver medalist. Lastly, Nolan's an Olympic boat club, 2020 Games in Tokyo. He could be up against the first of the game. How amazing would that be? Very impressive is his list of accomplishments. Despite winning numerous tournaments, championships, and awards, Nolan remains a humble, well-liked man. His mother, Alex David, says, Nolan has had amazing accomplishments in the wrestling mat. The life he lives is easy. I've seen sacrifices, the hours of work, the disappointments, the ultimate prizes that has brought him. And despite some major setbacks, he never gives up. He has seen more determination and discipline than anyone I know. But what I'm most proud of the man, what I'm most proud of is the man who's going to be off the map. When coaches, teachers, friends, strangers stop her to tell her how polite he is, how kind he is, that he works hard, that he's respectful. Those are the qualities that carries him. His father, Jason, says, I am most proud of Nolan's humility and his drive. He's always pushing himself. He never gets too high on himself or too low. He is well aware that in spite of his achievements, that there is still much work to be done. There is always a long-term goal. Any successes or failures along the way are merely used as a learning experience. These are character traits that will serve him well for a lifetime. Nolan is on his way to becoming a fine young Mohawk man and a great human being. His politeness, friendliness, and contagious smile are indicative of his down-to-earth personality. Sister Hadley says, the best thing about my brother is that he gives me strong heart to become a family. I like that. So Nolan, on behalf of Mohawk Council Representative, I'd like to congratulate you on your various accomplishments and achieved so far in your young career. You have a very bright future ahead of you, and I wish you the best of luck. You're a great role model for our children and a perfect representative for the president. Keep making us proud. Put your hands together for Nolan Torrance.
All right, we'll move along with our other presentations this evening. I want to thank you for your indulgence as we presented the certificate and were able to take a photo with Nolan and his family. So now I want to turn the floor over to Leslie Papineau from the Department of Technical Services, as well as Curtis Lazor from the Department of Tejo-Denawago. We're going to go through a presentation on the Ogre Bridge Corridor improvements that are being proposed at this time. So we do have a presentation that they would like to go through with you.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? My name is Curtis Lazor. I'm the lead on the Ogre Bridge Corridor Improvement Project. We're going to go through a slideshow with a number of focus meetings, community meetings, and MCA general meetings. What we're doing is we're putting it out to the community of Akwesasne to give us some feedback on what they would like to see in the Ogre Bridge Corridor. Mohawk Council has contracted with the Federal Bridge Corporation as well as the St. Lawrence International Bridge Corporation on doing the last stages of the contract for the bridge demolition and replacement. Now that the old span of the Three Nations Bridge Cross is taken down and replaced, now they want to do improvements to the corridor. So we're working with a concept designed from 2009 when this whole project was being discussed with the council. And we have some images, some background. Have some dates here from when the project started back in 2002 with the idea of replacing bridge and demolition. I have some handouts at the back. If you pick them up, you can follow along with the handout. Anyhow, in 2002, we did a harmonized environmental assessment. It's the first time it's been done in Canada. Our environment program partnered with the Federal Bridge Corporation, using our framework based on the Ohonda Galiwadekwa, the Thanksgiving Address, and Canadian Environmental Assessment. First time it's ever been done. Our scientific officer, Henry Lickers, thought this was a way to go. It's impact our people directly as well as impact Canadians and international travelers coming through the territory. November 2004, a preliminary design came forward with some road widening and improvements. And a little later on in the presentation, we'll show you what they proposed as far as improvement. 2005, a conceptual plan came out. And this included the CBSA facilities on Dhawan. Since then, CBSA has now moved to Cornwall. So these plans are working on the idea that the CBSA, or the Canadian Border Services Agency, was still going to be on Cornwall Island or Dhawan. In January 2006, our harmonized environmental assessment report was completed, submitted to Canada, accepted. Another conceptual plan came out in 2009 to deal with CBSA and Dhawan. And things happened. Customs moved to Cornwall, Tobus moved to Cornwall. So July 2012, the Canadian Environmental Assessment Act came into play, requiring all Canadian agencies to do an environmental assessment. That is again, 2017, Mohawk Council has been granted contract 4B and 5 for the last stages of bridge replacement. Slide, please. Here's the project area where We're working with, from the crossroads on Ogre, the First Bridge abutment. All this area through here. The Peachtree Mall, Express Gas, the Seaway buildings, and the road crew garages, along with some residential areas. Next slide, please. So here are overlays of what they proposed in 2009, and this is what we're bringing to the community. Well, there are some features in here. It's a roundabout access road called a cul-de-sac, turnaround. Access points for CP holders or property owners here in the corridor, as well as here. Ideas for road widening, turning lanes, all-terrain vehicle paths on the west side of the corridor, as well as a pedestrian walking bicycle path on the eastern portion of the corridor. Other features that they proposed were a welcoming park here, where the old on-ramp to the old, that's leveled. And as you pass through there, you can see that it's leveled now, and they're putting down topsoil. So they came to us and they asked us, "No, can we plan something? We have a budget. We want to work with you." The Department of Winawago on hand, as well as the Department of Technical Services, to do the environmental assessment in this area. So what Federal Bridge wanted us to do was to do the environmental assessment in between the fence. And what our environment program said, that's all disturbed land. It's just pretty much grass and fenced to fence. Some native plant. So we went. Slide. We decided to do an environmental assessment to create a baseline to see what parts of our natural world are going to be impacted by these improvements. So we're going 150 feet past the fence into these areas that are shaded onto the lots and properties of community members. We're finding a lot of interesting plants, animals, insects, herbs, living in those woods. Some mature wooded areas. Different features where years ago someone tried to build a house but abandoned foundations, what have you. A lot of areas on the western side are more or less starting to develop. Residences, businesses, and the like. A lot of areas on the eastern side are still pretty much intact. Woods and wet, what have you. This is an aerial image. We partnered with the St. Regis Mohawk tribal clerk. They have access to the drone that they purchased. They use for assessment. This picture here, there's actually two pictures and it was stitched together. Is a look at the crossroads here to the North Bridge abutment. This is at 400 feet of surface. So our intent is to offer a community voice in the direction and the design of North Bridge corridor with the Three Nations Bridge crossing. We're getting some questions at some of our meetings. Community members want answers. We don't have answers. We're taking comments, writing them down, and then we're sending them up the line. This is what our community wants. These are our ideas, images of our people, our community. Green space. We want recreational areas where picnic, where we walk, ride our bike, worry about traffic. We're encouraging directions for discussions for design implemented by the MCA working group in the community to foster community preference for the design of the corridor. We have various departments and programs within MCA coming to working group meetings, and we're constantly gathering input from the Aboriginal Rights and Research Office, from Nationville, from Upper the Mohawk Police, the ambulance, conservation, so on and so forth. Wherever we get a clue from feedback that we have from the community, then we go out and we try to find those answers and we gather the information. So there's a need for fire department to be here. There's an emergency. We make it look pretty like a boulevard. Reduce traffic, slow traffic down by putting speed bumps. That may be detrimental to some of our community members who are in an ambulance trying to get to the hospital. We don't want. We have to come up with alternatives. And third point here is we're updating the community throughout the planning process as well as provide opportunities for members to comment throughout the planning process. We encourage feedback. Yesterday, Aboriginal, I had an elder come to my house on the Port Drilling and have an opportunity to speak up at one of our community meetings. Their opinion. And that's important. It's important that we feel our voice is being heard, whether it's in a public like this or if it's private. I encourage everyone in this room, if you have some comments, please contact me. Get a hold of me at my office, my email, my telephone. The purpose of this project is to increase the effectiveness, efficiency, and the safety along the corridor. Public international crossing. Slide. So, technical aspect, technical goals, I'm going to turn over to Leslie. You can follow that.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Leslie Papin. I work for the Department of Technical Services. I'm going to go through the various technical goals. See, the intent is to obtain technical input from for the improvement of the general mobility and traffic flow of the bridge corridor by means of the following experts. Help. We contacted the various sources. This includes the traffic safety and design engineers, the historical and cultural experts, communication specialists, the essential emergency services. This includes fire, rescue, and police. Also the Akwesasne Tourism Working Group. So those are just a few. By any means, we also encourage the community to come and we welcome feedback also. Next, requested a traffic study from the Federal Bridge, Seaway International Bridge Corp. The current statistics that we see from SIA from May 1st, 2016 to April 30th, 2017, cars was roughly 2.2 million, trucks 69,395, for a total of 2.3 million approximate. We're still in the process of obtaining more information, to confirm. Next bullet, improvements to pedestrian safety, including the walkways, the side road services, road signage, and lighting. So we're still in the process of obtaining that. Regarding community goals, 10 is to obtain community input for areas of concern based on current corridor situations within the project that pose hazards. This is important. We obtain community feedback on the previous 2009 concept, the improvements in design features, which we found from the current 2009 layout doesn't pose what is needed for today. So the design has to change to suit. We've received various community feedbacks and needs. So we just keep updating the list. I'll run through the list. So various community members have provided input, feedback. There's They would like development of the tennis and volleyball courts, possibly the cross box, provide a food market, programmable traffic light, um, permeable walking surfaces for sidewalks and natural irrigation, durable benches, seating, flower boxes, sustainable landscaping with low maintenance, solar power lighting, signage development to be consistent with throughout the community, less billboard advertisements, prefer programmable traffic lights and pedestrian crossing rather than roundabout. Well, they would like FBC, the Federal Bridge, to consider extending the bridge corridor design to the south section, part of that, of the crossroads, rather than the proposed self-landing park. The option of a hammerhead turnaround versus a cul-de-sac for the service roads. Incorporate rumble strips at the crossroads. Security along the corridor. Safety of pedestrians walking along the corridor is key. Toll booth relocation option. Speed bumps on ATV trails with stop signs. Road trees should not impede the view. Retain a concrete pier from the old bridge for Akwesasne. And this is an opportunity to present a showcase Akwesasne, to beautify Akwesasne. So the proposed project that we see from 2009, from the 2009 drawing, improvements to the international roadway was to include side service roads. You see here, sidewalks along the corridor from the crossroads to the North Channel Bridge, ATV pathways, and traffic roundabout improvements. Also included is a center median with center turning and emergency vehicle laneway, and cul-de-sac connection, side roads, and signage and wayfinding greetings. From what feedback we've received, this just views images, conceptual images. The replacement of existing chain link fence with natural vegetation, stone, wood, or metal type fencing. Programmable traffic lights and crosswalk at crossroad intersections. The inclusion of durable outdoor furniture, parks along the and soft lighting. So these are just options, ideas that we would that we're looking for the community for feedback. So from the main corridor, south end, the 2009 concept, the intention was to look at the south, call it the South Landing Park, and which is the entrance to and from the Akwesasne community. So it's a proposed site, called it the greeting site. So this view just shows you the location there. And this is just a drawing layout of the greeting site. This was 2009. What we're seeing now from the community is that it doesn't work for us now in current, based on the fact that the toll booth and have moved south. So even with the park, nobody can stop in that area and go along. So you have to report in first and then turn around and come back. So it just doesn't, it's not feasible for now. This model was done in 2009. This was done by the Federal Bridge as a concept, where they were part of the retaining structure of the bridge and incorporate it into that South Landing Park. So again, based on comments, it's not feasible to what the intentions of what we want to do today. There was a concern regarding safety with the existing structure of the bridge, so it wouldn't work. And there's design considerations. What exactly would this space be for the space? Is it a welcoming space for the public? An opportunity to share historical references, cultural information, wayfinding, signage? Is it just green space? Is it a space for pedestrian lookout where you can overlook and look out to the water? Does it connect to the walking trails? And there's opportunity. Is there opportunity for art installation features? And must provide spaces easy to maintain and be self-sustaining. So it's still up in the air, still not confirmed. But we're looking at various options, opportunity for local artists to provide art installations along the corridor. So this is from an example from Juni Fox, local artist. Dave Fadden, another local artist, cultural artist, that we would include possibly in some form. There's an opportunity there for other local artists. This one is an example from Darren Bonaparte, historian. He's got a he has the proposal for the Oxasi historical markers, and what he's doing is around the arena grounds, he's providing provide markers, signage along the proposed arena walking trail. So we thought maybe this would be a good idea to include him in the corridor also. Again, an option. Landscape features for the site. It's not necessarily at the South Park landing spot, but along the corridor. We're looking at design with cultural significance, place for the community, the use of natural landscape and materials, landscape to be self-sustaining, and the opportunity to showcase our community. So these are just examples of imagery. We are looking for what is the theme. Is there a theme out there? The inclusion of bench seating, tiered steps overlooking the river, lighting, the interplay of soft and hard surfaces, which is landscape materials, outdoor furniture, etc. This is just existing photos of the at the crossroad and along the corridor. It's the photos of express gas. So it's all existing, what's here now, and what our next step forward. So we take all this information forward and provide a conceptual sketch. That would be our next move once we get all the information in from the community and propose something. If this is approved from the community, we would take it to the next step. We take it to the federal bridge and see if based on the funds are available, and then we would give that to the design consultants.
I'd just like to add, at our last meeting with our team here, our Mohawk Council Justice team, working group team, with Federal Bridge and SIBC, we asked them those questions. Like, do we have to go through with your plan for the Memorial Park, the South Landing Park? They did not say no, they did not say yes. But we're remaining hopeful that we can take that funding and put it elsewhere within the corridor to achieve the goals of this project. Other issues that we discussed were about maintenance. Well, who's going to cut the lawn? Who's going to plant flowers? Who's going to put the mulch down? SIBC didn't say they would. MCA, we didn't say we would. So those are things that we're going to have to figure out. But what we're trying to do is get comments from the community. What would you like to see? Then we can start figuring out, okay, no South Landing Park for sure. We want that money to go into more permeable walkways. We want more walking. We want park-like benches where we can go and sit and enjoy open space for our families. We want trees. There's options with trees to plant fruit, nuts, plants, the wild. So we just want to put that out there, and we want feedback. Question? Yes. We actually got a pretty good after this tourism working group, and we're talking about branding. So we want to have the same signs throughout across the north and south. We want the same kind of thing. So when we get visitors to the community, it's like a visual aid. Say, oh, the blue bench, blue garbage can, the picnic table. This is still off the list. We're talking about signage too. Yes. I'm doing an environmental assessment, so we're targeting October for that, and then it's going to go to Federal Bridge. They're going to review it, and of course we're going to probably have some design meetings. What have you. I'm not sure what design team their target timeline is. So they'll review the environmental assessment. We're looking at start with. We passed through with the Department of Economic Development. There was discussions around a trail system in the community, especially Gawanoga. Next, after us walk school with Pinola for the ideas are coming out. The ideas are more. To take that. Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm doing the Gawanoga Bridge Corridor project. There's a line item on the agenda for the roads. Another question over here. Some recreational areas, yeah. I believe that'd be the responsibility of the Federal Bridge Corporation. Yeah. Any more questions before we conclude? Yes.
Yeah, there is talk about its funding on by the federal bridge. I think they're looking for funding. They ran out of money. So there is talk of it, but I know that the city of Cornwall wants to retain one of the tallest one. So there've been talk about, okay, well, is there some in Akwesasne, one of them also, or so it's there's a question out there to the bridge whether or not we can keep it or we remove it. That's a good idea. Yeah, we'll add that to it. So I've been asked to provide an update for the SNI and Min as proposed for yes, SNI here. So I'm just going to read the briefing note. I think everybody has what's listed in your packages, if those that I picked up. So the in 2010, I'll just give you a brief history. MCA was hired by the Thatcher Workplace Consultant to conduct a space needs study identifying the space needs for the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne. In 2012, a site feasibility report was completed and found that the SNI location was the most viable option, and council agreed on approving the necessary architectural and engineering drawings. The new administration building would house several of MCA's departments. In 2014, design consultants were retained to prepare the preliminary design for the new 13,500 square foot one-story admin building for the district of SNI, located at the corner of School Road and Yohahio Road. The new facility would accommodate the Department of Justice, excluding Mohawk Court, and the Department of Housing and Hydro-Quebec office. The design also includes meeting and touchdown spaces for council and the public. The construction of the administrative building provides much-needed administrative spaces. In 2014, a geotechnical subsurface investigation was completed by St. Lawrence Testing. The results concluded in a recommendation to pre-consolidate the site for 2 years. This will assist in the settling of the soil and bearing capacity. The site has been pre-consolidated with loads of gravel up to 3 foot high to load the soil over 2 years. This removed the anticipated settlement. The 2-year duration will end this year, December 2017. DTS would like to continue with their project by proceeding with design development to obtain tender-ready drawings once funds are in place. Design anticipated to be completed by February 2018. Lobbying strategies will continue to identify funds for construction. We're looking for more community consultation meetings and will take place during the design phase. So there's still more to come.
Are there any questions for Leslie on that? Yes.
Space needs accommodation report, and it identified key elements throughout the 3 districts. So it's, yeah.
Okay, we're going to move on. We wanted to give an update on the Akwesasne election law. I'll turn it over to Connie. She'll provide you with an update. we've had a discussion around the process in which has been used to amend the election law. And the process that we have to use is the process that's described in the current law. And recognizing that it's not a perfect process, because ideally we would want very minimal involvement of council and the very minimal ability for council to say what should go in and what should go out, right? And we have struggled with that since the beginning, but that is what we have right now. It's not a perfect situation. With respect to your comments about the duties of a chief, those responsibilities, those are, some are outlined in the election law, very minimal. Some are outlined in the ethical conduct law. And one of the things that we've struggled with is trying to bring those together, find the resources and the ability to bring those together, and when is the appropriate time. Unfortunately, we have to start somewhere, and right now it's just with the election law to find, what the community sees needs improvement. That's where we're at right now. All right. Okay. Oh. Yes. Yes. Yeah. The ultimate deadline, is the very furthest, is the end of December of this year, to be completely ratified and accepted to be used. Yes. Yes. Yeah. So from now until the end of December would be the total consultation with the community, the amendments, and then the final vote on the final draft for consideration by the end of December. Yes. Yes, it'll be a community. Yes. Yeah. Yes. It hasn't been determined, but my recommendation would be that it be by secret ballot, so that people can vote in anonymity and whether they accept or reject it. And that's the last attempt to amend it. That was the process used to, was a secret ballot vote. There's another question here. No? Just district only. Right. No, so the committee has taken what the highest percentage was and then introduced that into the draft, right? So there were some areas in the survey that were too close that they were not considered at all. There's about 5 fundamental changes in the law as it's being proposed. Yes. Really to modernize it, to try to improve the efficiency of council. It's something that I've pushed on council we need to modernize the processes in which we use. One of the fundamentals is the shrinking of council, and that's in there. We just felt there was time and there are some areas in there that needed to be clarified, So a resolution was brought forward to amend the law. Yes. There are 3 on that committee. They're ex officio, though. They have no voting ability. No. Again, we've been challenged with the process that we have to use. It's not perfect, right? The reason, but the problem is that what the law says, that's what we have to use. And there's been a lot of discussion on council as to whether council's involvement should be, and if it is, how much. And then with the survey results, there's been a lot of back and forth, what should go forward and what shouldn't. We really need to start somewhere, and that's the product that we put out is somewhere. Recognizing that the draft product is probably going to change quite a bit from now till the end product. Yeah, so the process we used was a committee, formation of a committee, and they determined that a survey would be done to gauge the community as to where we should start. Again, the process that's used is what's in the law, right? And it's not a perfect process because there are a couple instances in that process where council can say yes or no to the proposal, which I think is fundamentally flawed because really it is the conditions of council that they're saying is yes or no, right? And we've struggled with that. Yeah, no, it's unfortunately, again, the process that we use is what's in the law. And as we go towards amendments, it's something that needs to be seriously looked at. Any other questions on the law? Okay, thank you very much. The next one is a PowerPoint presentation that's in your packages that I'm going to provide to you. The council recently had a presentation from the Chiefs of Ontario, some staff from the Chiefs of Ontario, and they're representing the Chiefs Committee on Energy. So you may have seen in the news, more on some of the Ontario news, is that Premier Wynne, or the Ontario government, has announced that they're going to sell up to 60% of Hydro One. As current, or used to be, Hydro One was owned mostly by the province. It was their company. But in an effort to raise money for the province, they've said that they would sell up to 60% of the company through a public IPO process, which is where you buy shares. So at that time, the Chiefs in Ontario formulated a position or a proposition to the Ontario government that the Chiefs collectively, the 133 First Nations in Ontario, wanted to buy part of these sales, part of these shares that the province is putting out for sale. So I'll go through this a bit. It's the Ontario government has the broad ownership, as I've explained, of Hydro One. A utility owned the majority of electricity distribution and transmission infrastructure in the province of Ontario. So they don't make the power, they transmit the power. So the big cable lines that move power across Ontario, is main one is Hydro One. Just go back. So in October 2015, the Chiefs in Assembly authorized the Chiefs Committee on Energy to negotiate an agreement in principle for the purchase of these common shares. So we as the Akwesasne community, as part of the Chiefs of Ontario, there's an annual assembly that they have. The Chiefs passed a resolution saying that to go forward with trying to purchase some shares from Ontario. In June 2016, the Chiefs in Assembly approved the terms of an agreement in principle. And then in May of 2017, the Chiefs in Assembly provided approval to put in place the holding structure and initial equity model to complete the transaction. So the discussions on amending the equity model to begin at the AOCC this past June. So that's a bit of background on how we've gotten there. So this is the key terms of the term sheet. Karen, you want to shut that light off while you're there so they can see this? So what it is that this is assuming that 100% of the First Nations in Ontario agree to this deal. So that means 133 First Nations have to agree. It's 14.85 million, representing 2.5 of Ontario Hydro as a company as a whole. So it's 14 million shares. The purchase price would be $18 per share, which approximately is 20 to 25% less than the share price now. So if you actually were to go on the stock market right now, the shares are trading at about $25. So the agreement that the Ontario Chiefs have negotiated is $18 a share. So initially, we buy them at $18. Right now, if we buy them at $18, they're worth $25. So we've gotten a price locked in. The total purchase price is going to be $268 million for those amount of shares. So part of the negotiated deal is that $268 million, which is the cost of those shares, will be financed by the province of Ontario. So we're buying shares from the province of Ontario. They're also loaning us the money to buy their shares. It's a 25-year loan. It's at the rate of the loan would be at the province's borrowing rates, whatever the province can borrow money at, plus 0.15%. So that's going to be the rate that we'll borrow from. The market value of the shares is $358 million. So when I talked about they're $18 a share right now, they're worth $358 million, but we're buying them for $260. The market value to loan is 150% fixed, currently approximately 133%. Part of the deal that has been negotiated by the Chiefs Committee is that the province will loan us the money to buy $268 million in shares, and they'll also provide us with a $45 million advancement if it's accepted by the Chiefs. The closing date is December 29, 2017. That's the end, the most furthest they can push this deal out. And when I talked about 100% participation by the First Nations, there's a threshold. 80% of the 133 First Nations have to agree to the deal before the province will proceed with the deal. So that means that 106 of the communities in Ontario have to agree to this deal. So if there's over 106 but under 133, all of these numbers are prorated. This is the max that the province will sell to the First Nations, and it's prorated based on participation. This slide here talks about how the corporate structure will go if we decide to proceed with this deal. So the top here shows the First Nation partners, which is the 133 communities in Ontario. They would form the Ontario First Nations Sovereign Wealth LP, which is a limited partnership. And then they will form two companies that will be owned by the First Nation communities. One will be the Power Holding Company, and the other will be the First Nations Wealth Funding. The Power Holding Company will be the one that holds the shares and borrows the money to buy the shares. The Wealth Fund will be the one that manages cash and the investments. Next slide. So the Special Chiefs Assembly, in May of this year, the Chiefs Committee on Energy and Hydro One shares have concluded their due diligence as phase 2 process and recommends the following. Invest the initial $45 million based on 100% First Nation participation and any amount realized on the Hydro One shares for 12 years or until the holdings are over $90 million, whichever comes first. So what the committee is recommending is that if the communities agree, the province advances $45 million, that money gets invested until it's worth $90 million, which is doubled, or 12 years, whichever comes first. And they adopt a governance structure similar to of the OFNLP. So we go back one slide. So currently right now, Akwesasne as a community has a similar structure to this right now. Except for, I guess, kind of not this part, but as the communities, we're a shareholder in a company called the Ontario First Nations Limited Partnership, which is a corporation owned by us in 133 other communities. And that company receives money from the Ontario government in the form of Ontario Lottery Gaming Corporation profits. So that would be formerly known as Casino-Rama. So you know that we get money every it's actually every quarter from the profits. Used to be Casino-Rama. Now it's all of Ontario Gaming. So we actually have a similar structure now that exists like this that we're part of, because the communities are the owners of the corporation, and they're the beneficiaries of profits from the Ontario Gaming Corporation. So that's the corporate structure. It exists now. So when you move the slide forward, so when we talk about adopting a governance structure similar of the OFNLP, that's what we have, the Casino-Rama deal. So adopt the OFNLP equity formula is in the interim, and shares cannot be sold within the first 5 years. This will allow time for discussion and decisions on the permanent formula. So the transaction summary, the Chiefs Committee on Energy, Hydro One shares, recommends that all First Nations become a partner in the Ontario Sovereign Wealth Corporation. The OFN Sovereign Wealth LP opportunity is a benefit for the following reasons. There's no cash investment by any of the communities, including us. There is no First Nation liability for the repayment of the loan. The transaction will not derogate from rights to pursue past grievances against the former Ontario Hydro, Hydro One, OPG, OEF Corp in the province. And based on the wealth creation mandate discussion below, this transaction can provide long-term wealth creation for the future generations of First Nations. Is there another slide? So, where we are right now is that we're rolling this out to the community for information, for your feedback. So becoming a First Nation partner, every community in Ontario has to give this consideration, and whether or not we support the Committee on Hydro One. The engagement material is going to be sent out to our community, and we'll distribute that to you. The First Nation decides whether or not they sign on to become a partner in the Sovereign Wealth LP. First Nations attend. We're going to be doing webinars for council and community if we're interested. The First Nation provides an executed council resolution and equity partnership commitment and a Tories waiver to the Chiefs of Ontario, committing that we're prepared to enter into this. So, what is this? So when we talked about the governance structure, these groups listed here, which is the Grand Council Treaty 3, Anishinaabe Nation, Union of Ontario Indians, Association of Iroquois and Allied Indians, Independent First Nations, and unaffiliate. We are part of this group here. So as it exists now, when I talked about the corporate structure of the Casino-Rama deal, we have representation on that board of directors via the Independent First Nation. So they're proposing the same structure as corporate structure. So the transaction closing process is the June, July, and August is the ongoing community consultation, which we're doing now. And then there's the collection of the equity participation agreements, and then completing it by December 29th. I don't think anything. Okay, and so this is the committee that represented all of Ontario. The negotiating committee, which was Grand Chief Lord Peters was co-chair, Sarah Mainville, Chief Ava Hill, Judy Whitecloud, myself, Phil Montour, Jason Batiste, Jason Larone, Gary Allen, and Brendan Houston. And then there was the lawyer that's working on it is Dickerson Wright, as well as this Crosby and Company is a financial advisor. So, for us, we wanted to share this information with you. Council will have to decide, um, council will have to decide what mechanism we're going to use for this approval. If we go back, there is no, go back to the corporate structure for a second. Try to ways back. So this, right there. So when we talked about there's no liability to the community, that's because of this corporate structure that exists here. So we'll become partners of this company. This company will own these two companies. And you'll see that this company borrows the money and holds the shares. So if the company were not to pay back, it's this company that ends up having to pay it back. So we're part of this. The company owns the company in this case. So why is the province of Ontario doing this? It really, and we've had this discussion on our council, it really sounds like it's too good to be true, right? They're giving us $268 million in a company that they're selling. They're loaning us the money to buy their company, and there's no liability to us. So why are they doing it? The province is selling 60% of that company to raise money. The province right now is moving into an election. Premier Wynne has been an advocate for First Nation communities in Ontario. She has grandchildren who are Indigenous. She's made a lot of strides in trying to bring the relationship closer together. All polls indicate that she's probably, right now, the election were called, she's not going to make it. So that's why one of the dates that they want to, or they have to have it done by is the end of December, because they'll start rolling into political mode and wanting to be re-elected as government. The other thing is that when the province announced that they were going to sell 60% of the company, they didn't consult with First Nations in that decision. And the reason why it would affect us as individual communities or rights holders is because the company owns transmission lines across territories across Ontario, right? The company is a transmission line. So, in essence, in lieu of and I mean collectively Ontario chiefs, for not stopping the sale of the company, they've said, all right, don't throw up the consultation card, don't try to take us to court and stop the sale. We'll loan you some money to buy part of the shares in this company. That's essentially what it comes down to. The other thing is that when we look at the actual investment, when we talk about the 45 million, it's projected that we won't actually see a return on that purchase for anywhere from 8 to 10 years. It means we won't get any return on it. All the money that we paid out as the owner will automatically go back into paying the loan. So really, this is about long-term investments as a community. It's not meant to be like a quick cash grab that we're going to buy in and sell, make $100,000 or whatever it may be, and walk away. It's really about long-term. And the other thing is that through the conditions of the sale is that no community can sell their shares for the first 5 years. If they do, has to be sold to another First Nation community. Can't be sold on the market to anybody else, because again, when you look at the price of the shares, they're selling them to us for $18, they're $25. Theoretically, if we bought it, we could make $100 million right off the top, because they're worth 25, they're selling it to us for 18. So there are conditions in the loan that you won't sell the shares for 5 years, and if you do, has to be to another community. And the one more thing when we talked about the distribution, so what does that mean for us? Currently through the Casino-Rama formula, how it works, we receive money from all of the casino gaming revenues. We receive 1.7 gross % of all Ontario gaming goes into a company that we're part of, and the profits are distributed based on a formula. And there's a remoteness factor, there's a population factor, and a couple other small factors. So what I'm saying is that because Akwesasne is the second largest First Nation, second largest First Nation in Canada, second largest in Ontario, we receive the second largest payment of profits. So that, if we proceed with this deal, the 2.5% shares, the proposal is that the profit sharing would be similar, actually be the same as the Casino Rama deal. So we stand as a large community to gain essentially the second most, and the first most would be 6 nations in this. And because we're a large community, if any of the 133 First Nations decide to sell, we are actually in a better position to buy another community's shares than some of the other communities are, because our distribution is much higher than some of the smaller ones. So that, we wanted to give you a presentation on that as the Chiefs of Ontario rolls out more information to us. We're going to be rolling it out to you. We'll probably have a couple focus meetings, touchdown, and a few more general meetings. And ultimately, this is something that our council has to pass a resolution by the end of this year, whether or not we buy into this deal or not. The other thing is that when the final date comes, if you're not in, there's no buy-in afterwards. You buy in the beginning, or you're not getting in at all later on. And when we talked about 80%, 106 First Nations, 80% of the 133 First Nations have to agree before the province will proceed with this deal. If we only get 70 communities saying this is a great deal, and the rest of them don't, the deal just goes away. Any questions? Yes. Mm-hmm. No, no. So, yeah, a couple things. The province, again, why they're doing it is because they didn't tell us they were going to sell the company. They're supposed to consult before they make decisions that adversely affect us as people, right? They didn't tell us. So we have the ability to challenge them in court and say, no, you're selling your company, 60% of your company, you have transmission lines on our community. That decision to sell affects us. So in lieu of not taking them to court, they said, we'll give you part of this company, right? We're selling it to everybody. If this company goes bottoms up and the shares become, worth $10, but we bought them at $18, that's why this corporate structure is here. The company that borrowed the money will take the hit, not the communities that are owners in, which can happen in companies. If a company goes bankrupt, the owners sometimes can take a hit, but that's why there's this corporate structure here to protect us as communities from any event that companies we lose money or the company goes bad. Yes. No. If 80% of the communities agree to this, we end up getting bound to it. But I must say too, though, is we are actually in a pretty good position. One, because, and this doesn't leave the room, 2/3 of our communities in Quebec. This is an Ontario company. And our power provider in the area is not Hydro One. So we don't have any Hydro One infrastructure running through our territory. Our traditional territory, maybe up towards Cornwall, but it's Cornwall, and outside of Cornwall is Hydro One. There are communities who are directly affected by Hydro One in their operation. It's in our backyard. It's not in our backyard, right? 2/3 is Quebec Hydro. The other one is Cornwall Electric. Yes, I know. Right? They know. Believe me, they know. Is there a question over here? Yes. Yeah, go ahead. that are the indication of whether they're accepting it or not. It's a bit early to tell. The ones that I have talked to through the region are on board with it, because it really is a good deal, right? I mean, at the face value, and when the government comes forward with these sort of things, you always say, what is the real deal, right? The Premier is honestly committed to improving First Nations. Problem is that the Premier can only do so much as an individual. It's the government as a whole, right? I mean, let's not forget, she is in rough political shape. Her polls are really low. They'll probably end up going blue, which is conservative in the province, which will not be good for us. And this is really kind of a send-off gift from, that's what the political analysts are saying at this point. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, flow back up here and then out to the communities. This company here will actually decide what's going to happen to the investment, right? So what early indications are saying is, because we want to have long-term investment, is that all the profits received will be turned back into the investment probably for the first 10 years. That way the distribution is much greater. One. Yeah. And I'll tell you that, one of the challenges we face, because we're a large community, is that in the Casino Rama, or the whole deal that we have one vote. And there's a lot of communities in Ontario that get pretty upset that we get so much money, but it's based on population. So one of the challenges that we've always faced is that they always want to talk about the distribution formula again, small communities, because they want a bigger piece of the pie. And we Six Nations ourselves and some of the 5 large communities have shied away from talking about the distribution again, because theoretically we can be outvoted. They can say large communities capped out at $1 million. And reality, if we use the same formula, Casino Rama right now pays us about $4.5 million a year. Whereas communities are getting, some of the small communities are getting $500,000. Question over here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. 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 So the way the actual distribution is going to happen is not 100% decided, because we need to get the communities to buy in first, and then we'll decide what the distribution is. But there's a strong recommendation that it will be the same as the Casino Rama deal. So that means we'll get a big chunk of change. That deals with this whole structure here. But they're talking about, no, I'm getting there. They're talking about 10 years, though, before we start seeing payments to us as shareholders, right? So what we do as a community with that money that comes in is to be decided by the community. But we will have from the end from the closing date about anywhere to predicting from 7 to 10 years to decide that, because that's when we'll start getting the payments, and they will be quite significant. Mm-hmm. This deal will still stay the same. This deal will. The distribution, as far as the community goes, council would have to enter into some sort of agreement with the community that this is how we're going to distribute that money, right? We could say that will roll all of our profits from this deal into a trust. Or we could say that it would all go into, this sort of mechanism. And I will tell you that as a community, we're starting to have those serious discussions. We've already done it with the community trust that we have. The Dundee land claim is on record for $239 million. There are ongoing works to look at different regimes for this money, this injection of cash that will be happening over the next little while. Yes? Is there a question there? Oh, sorry. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so we would ideally, over the next 10 years, make that determination. One of the conditions that we could put upon ourselves as entering into this deal is that council comes up with something before any of that money is spent, right? We make that internal restriction. There's a few bucks now that we have that's like that, that we don't spend because we haven't determined what to do with it. Yeah. Yeah, that's the pot. No. The annual payment from the Ambridge gas distribution for the gas pipeline, we receive $100,000 a year. We received $1 million when signing the deal in 2006. That money is not. Oh yeah, it's internally restricted, so it's not being used for anything. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Casino-rama. Yeah. Yeah. So we allocate that money annually through the $4 million that we get annually, and our provided reports through our financials. No, so they would after all the bills are paid, essentially, all the money goes back into the fund. Right, so the management would be covered off, and that's it. So it's very minimal. Like the Casino-rama now is probably 2 full-time employees. The biggest cost they have is the annual shareholders meeting, which is all the 133 communities come together to do regular corporate business. That's the biggest cost that they have. Otherwise, just strictly flow through. Right? The money goes out the door. I'll just take that off. As a shareholder of the company, there is ability to raise that at a shareholders meeting, but the likelihood is probably pretty slim. It's just because it's only 2.5% of the company that we would buy. But although having said that, any community person right now can buy shares into this company. It's a publicly traded. $24 a share. Okay, so we're going to move along. We wanted to provide this information to you. We will be having more community meetings on this. We do have a deadline at the end of this year to say yay or nay to this. If 80% of the communities agree, January, if we're not in it, we're not getting it. They've already said, because if 80% agree after December 31st, you're in or you're out. There's no way to buy in afterwards. In this deal, right? We could buy shares in the company, but we'll be paying the market price for them. So we'll continue to, over the next couple months, provide you with more information on this and roll it out to the community. Okay, I want to now turn to, oh, sorry, yes. Yeah. No. Because of the corporate structure, the payments are in the beneficiary of Indians. There won't be any tax paid on our profits, but there are some obviously for the bigger company. Oh, the company as a whole, right? Well, it's a good question. We'll get more breakdown on that, but because of the fact that we are the shareholder, the communities, the company, and then the borrowing company, there are protections in why that's set up like that. One of them being, if it defaults, we as a community have no risk. We'll get more clarification on the tax question on that. Okay. All right, so I'm going to turn to my colleagues down here at the end of the table. They wanted to provide an update on some of the ongoing work that we're doing on the roads. You had asked earlier about the roads, so. Are there any questions on that? One of the things that we've been also pursuing in Indian Affairs is to enter into discussions about financing some of our infrastructure projects, because as we heard earlier today, earlier this evening, about the administration building down here at the school road, and that's a ticket price of about $5 million, I believe, for that project. And one of the challenges we face is trying to find pots of money to be able to build it, because all the priorities are on roads or water lines. And one of the things that we, as a community, we're 90% already connected to water lines. The government priorities of water lines, when we go to them and say we want to build a new administration building, they say it doesn't fit in our priorities. So we're engaging with Indian Affairs in the province to look at ways of financing some of our bigger capital projects. And that does include some of the road projects, because what we want to be in a position where Indian Affairs or province of Quebec says, we will make those payments for your loan over the next 5 to 10 years to pay it back, because what the struggle that they're having is they just don't have enough money to meet the needs as it exists. Their grants that they have aren't meeting the needs, and the needs right now is water across the country, and we're a bit past that. So we're looking at different financing options to meet some of our infrastructure needs. Yeah. Okay. Yes. That's at the end of the school. Okay. Yes. All right, so we're going to move along. The next item that we have is business from the floor. Yes. Unfortunately, we don't have any education portfolio here today. So you and I did have a conversation about this. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get a full response on that. I do apologize for you having to get the runaround on this, and I do acknowledge the question of when policies or laws apply and who it's convenient to. From what you're explaining to us, we'll have to take the information back and look through it and get the full report, which I've already requested from this morning's conversation. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, well, I apologize on behalf of the Mohawk Council for the treatment that you've received, and I do at the same time commend you for achieving your 4-year degree in 2 years and over and above the treatment or the hard time that you've had to have with one of our departments. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's, yeah. 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 Well, we will take your case and ask for a review of it. I do have to say also, though, that there is a Board of Education that's elected also that we will have that conversation with. And there is an appeal process that we'll look to see if there's that ability there. Again, we'll take this information forward. I will tell you, though, that our council is committed to improving the customer experience in the organization because some of the things that you've said, we have heard in other places of people coming in to receive services and have either been stonewalled or just the service they get as a person. Nobody should be treated like that. And I tell you that our council is committed to changing that. That's one of the things that we've pushed forward in the organization. It hasn't been easy, right? This comes with how we work as an organization, how we approach our people, and how we do business. And people don't like change, right? If you've been nasty to somebody your entire time being somewhere, try to get them to be nice, right? Or try to have a little humility. It's not always easy. I'm not saying that all programs and services are like that, but just that thinking. Council's well aware, and this is something that we've been pushing in the organization. We've also been pushing to hold people accountable for when these sort of things happen. And I'll tell you, when we say transparency, accountability, that is, we are pushing hard on that. Can we do better? Absolutely. Can we do better at this table? Absolutely. But that is something we continue to push down on. We'll do what we can to ensure that these sort of things don't continue to happen, right? I mean, you, other people who are going to school are our future leaders. They are our community members. At some point, we'll be replacing all of us at this table and in the community. So I apologize for the experience that you've had, and we will find out, where has things gone wrong, and we will figure out how do we better it. Because I'll tell you that one of the things that I have seen that, yeah, we can acknowledge we've done wrong, but we still don't fix it, right? We still don't learn from the wrongs. We just keep going, and the same thing continues to happen over. And I tell you that our council is committed to change. Alex. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. We'll follow up on some of that also that you provided. We have one over here, and then we'll come back over here.
Present to us the election law
Mhm.
and modernizing it, the city on its so important, the connection of leadership, and the kind of focus meetings, and the community input. I understand that, but what you're talking about, no,
Mhm.
the election law,
Mhm.
but as our children go older, this situation happens, as they said, again and again and again and again. Take that policy, make it a council, review it, you
Mhm.
people were elected, you review that policy, take it to their board of education and say, this is the flaws we got, but this is the flat we get from the students. We're fixing it, and you're going by it, because our people are starving, they're going hungry, they're quitting, yeah, we're still living a brand new life,
Mhm.
and they're struggling with poverty. And you said we're one of the top communities in Ontario. But
Mhm.
yeah, we can have a story
Yeah.
like that in a whole community.
Yeah.
So take that policy, bring it to your table,
Mhm.
and you guys do it. Because
Mhm.
somebody's not doing it. And make people accountable,
Mhm.
so people like that don't have to start. People like that don't have to be so stressful, because I know what stress is like. And I know what it's like to go to school and have a family and be stressed. And if anybody's ever lived it, why always be so stressed?
At the back there was a question. Go ahead. No, we acknowledge that, and I thank you. I mean, the general meetings are an opportunity for the community to express how they feel. We do try very hard not to put names in it. I mean, I know it is very emotional and difficult, but it is something that we are conscious of, and that we do editing on this. But I tell you, we do stand up for our employees. I mean, we're not going to be in a position to debate this with community members, whether it's right or wrong, understanding that there are situations in every situation. There's two sides, there's factors on both sides. We'll take the information in and do what we need to do and review this sort of thing. I mean, everybody has expressed some of their views on this. Some people have experienced it, others haven't, and we'll take it back. I mean, and I've said that we are committed to changing how we deliver service. This is a service delivery. That means the organization. I have told our employees that we are, as a community members, you're also providing a service to the community. What makes us really super unique, but it's also at the same time very challenging, because the people that you can deny are the people that you probably will encounter, within the next few days. And that's what makes us strong too. Though. We are a very strong organization. Again, we try to balance it. I acknowledge what you're saying, and that we're not trying to run any employee over, and that doesn't promote the morale. And we are considerate about what ends up getting put out to the community. Yes, here. No, I think it's not about the discussion that we're having is not about individuals. It's problems with policy and application of policy, right? I mean, how do we fix the system that these things do not continue to happen? And I tell you that our council is committed to changing the systems that these don't continue to happen, right? And like I said earlier, we need to learn from the mistakes that happen. Maybe they're not always mistakes either, right? I mean, that's part of our duty and our responsibility is to take that back and figure out where those flaws are, if there are any. Over here and then back. Yeah. Yes, and it's our responsibility to bring that in and figure out how we fix the system. Yeah. All right. Well, I will ask that you have a conversation with one of the chiefs offline after the meeting here to get a bit more particulars, and then we can follow up on what some options are there for you. Okay. Over. Go ahead, Tracy. Yep. Anything.
not my house, I didn't know how house is because there's no house. And then we're American style. Okay, that's the right church, that's what that is. $150 food. It doesn't make a difference on my stuff. We're talking about $150. My son is not living at his house, some of them are 5, 4 years. I think $2 is by American side, that's $1,000. Not even I paid $1,000 to live where I live. That's what I paid. So now I'm going to have to pay a whole other debt for my child. He has this debt that I can bring. What's that worth? So what's that going to do to me? As a mother and a family member, I'm going to step over that cost. I'm going to put the whole cost of my family on my partner in her case, all cost of who's allowed me to stay home for 2 months to help kids. Because no one else is so new. I could have had a family to stay home. So then this is going to be a galaxy. Now, what's being is impact all unruptured. Apply for this hardship fund, be investigated. The whole thing. I would have to. That's not okay. So, thankfully, and staff are 9 years old, working. They are under a administrative program. Things that have a lot of small people, the children, that one kid or 2 kids under the ratio of the age. So even though it's 16 months, my son is 16, they can allow it. I was thankful for that, but that's not going to be the case in this case. It's talking about we work together. I didn't tell you no, that happens, that the investigation needs to happen through the healthcare agency, through the directors, the program managers, that people, mothers, fathers, up to areas. I know very little. I took a lot of pride in this community. Better place for my children. And so we can hire a safety net. And so this is something that so I did come here for a full sense of how you walk. I came here to really be patient, to come to a common goal and understanding that we need expansion immediately. It's not integrity. There was a business owner in Texas that came up to me and said, I'm sorry you're going through this, you're going through. I got a whole lot of goals to try to attack. I'm really going through this. Couldn't even breathe after that. That is what my reality is about. So with this, working together, finding strength, finding a room. Don't let that instant impose, because if you haven't done it now, you see the six as one instant. 13 months right now, 30 is what the law calls for. What's that going to do? That's hard. And that's not okay. We're supposed to empower our community, strengthen our family. And that's not going to happen if we just think about it. And put the parent on it, parents have not been good. That is the heart of this community. Because I mentioned to an employee and a parent, they both said they have this was mothers who have their application in my child care. I am so
Thank you for bringing that to our attention and for explaining the impacts that that has on your family. And you're absolutely right. There's, there's probably more than a 13 in our community, and it's, portfolio are here and they've heard you, and we will advance that issue. Thank you. Mm-hmm. So, so your question is not a simple answer. There's not a simple answer to it. Peter Garl and the Underwatatwi team have been wanting. They presented at the last meeting. They're going to present at the next one. We are negotiating a self-government agreement as a band council with the government of Canada. So through the development of that, the Mohawk Nation has been invited to participate. Exactly how much participation they've had, I don't know, but the lead is with Mohawk Council and the Government of Canada to negotiate a self-government agreement between us and the Government of Canada, us as Mohawk Council, not as Akwesasne as a nation. Yes, well, yes, but it affects the people also as people of the community or enrolled Indians of the community. We can, we'll have that presentation next month on that we can have a bit more further. It means the assertion of our rights and be able to govern our people, right? Unfortunately, because we're a band council, those things are tied together as it exists now. And I'm telling you, Joan, this is how it is. I'm not saying that I agree with that, right? Governing as a nation, as a community as a whole, is somewhere that we should be as a community at some point, right? But it really, unfortunately, the processes are always tied to funding as they are right now, right, as they exist. Uh, but they get their through own source revenues or through leasing, or it's really about economic development for us, right? But with the reference in which she's showing is a band council, right? And so when you talk about there's a couple of different ways of looking at self-government, right? And is it we self-government through a piece of legislation empowered by the government of Canada, or do we exercise our rights as inherent as people, as a collective, right? Which it doesn't matter what piece of legislation says. So there's different ways of looking, right? So the way where the self-government that we are doing as the Mohawk Council is negotiating agreement between Mohawk Council and the government of Canada. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have a lot of growing to do as an organization. We're getting there, but there are some situations that arise based on funding agreements that restrict how we deliver it. Now, some of these things that we talked about today or tonight, maybe or maybe not, but I'm just putting that out generally. There are some things that are restricted by the funding agreement. Where we ideally want to be is that we're not restricted by that, but there's still the resources to come with it. And that's some of the negotiations that are. Believe me that, as a community government, we don't want to be in a position where we are, where we have to depend on the federal government for their transfers, right? We're not there yet. We've been in this process for probably 10 years, 10 solid years. So,
they go on to better bigger and better things. They go on and they make their whole business out of free education for mental health coaches. I've seen it, I've heard it, and it's happening. And I was appalled at what we do. Your employees are not made because they're contractors. They're not like that. They're contractors. And they get paid to go to conferences. They get paid for any education support them. They get paid for their licenses. And then they leave. Is what we do. Thank you very much, Mohawk Council. I really appreciate it. I have no outstanding rules, thanks to you. I just wanted to give you that little story. Next time you decide to hire an nominee, which is fine, good, but in the contract, no educational, no food conferences, no housing, no boarding, no food, no nothing. You go, you pay your own. This is money for programs, for over the one, only. Whether you're a Métis, whether you're a Mi'kmaq, I don't care. Off the top money, off the top loan, only. Because you know what? We get because the money that we're doing
All right, thank you. Esther, did you have something? Yes. It's a process that's been underway for 15 years. I don't know exactly where the mechanism was that there was the consent to go down that. We can research that. But since it's been happening, there have been information and consultation meetings that have been occurring over the last 15 years as to what is going on. But we can find specifically out a history. Well, as I said earlier, though, we wanted to bring Ando Watatui actually to this evening's meeting, but we already had a pretty packed agenda. So we will be bringing them to the meetings to talk about the self-government, to talk about the financial supports, to talk about what this means, and we can talk more about where this began and how the community consented to going down this road. But at the end of the day, the community will be required to vote on it, right? There will not be entering into any agreements without the community's consent, and that will be done through a referendum. Okay, I'm going to have to start wrapping up this evening. We are getting a bit late, so we'll limit the number. If we could keep the commentary down, we'll take the questions, but we'll try not to have too much. Mm. Mm. Yeah, so you're probably referencing an article that was in the newspaper where a contractor has gone to the federal government and said that we want to buy these surplus lands. It's not the lands that we have ownership in. It would be lands that we have a claim in. But we did reach out to the government and reminded them that if they're going to be selling any of those lands or doing anything with those lands, they have to consult with us on it. But from the information we got back, they're not selling any lands. The way the newspaper portrayed it was that the contractor was going to the government and was going to buy those lands, but the government's not selling those lands. He's tried; they've said no already. The other thing is that the city is, because of their zoning bylaws that exist, is not prepared to change their zoning laws to allow for commercial development like that. They want to keep it as part of it. So the land's not for sale. The government's not selling it to this company. The newspaper portrayed it like that, but the government's not. And we've reminded the government that this is a claim area and they have to consult with us. Currently, right now, we're in the development stage of the corporation, the body that will oversee it. But right now, there's nothing happening per se. Part of our consultation we did in front of the community that the transfer of the bike path would be transferred back to the city. So this one. The parcel of land, we'll just say as a block, has a strip of it that runs then yes, it was transferred to the city. It was part of the initial deal that was struck way before we had agreed to enter into it. The former council, I don't know specifically who. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It was part of the whole negotiated deal from the beginning. Yeah. Okay, Paul, you had a question also? Yeah, so there was an individual who was going to be sentenced for a crime against, for a crime, and we agreed that we would send a letter to the Crown asking for one of their conditions to be that they be not allowed to come to our country, part of their sentencing. They killed one of our community members, and they were non-member. So the person doesn't have any reason to come here. So we wrote a letter to the Crown saying that whatever conditions they get as a release or whenever they're released, that we ask that they're not allowed to come here. Non-member, yes, yes, yeah. Well, we have done that in the past. There's always been people who are not members of the community. Never do. Yeah, yeah. It's not the same person. Yeah, same case but different person. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yes, it's an ongoing position that we have. So we sign an agreement every year for the continued funding of that position. Currently, right now, it's Brian David in the OCD, the jail in Ottawa. Yeah, yeah. But we do have through justice outreach. They have outreach into Quebec jails if the need arises. No, it used to be a Miracle. So at one point, it was a John Miracle from Hindenega had that position. Yeah. 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 Well, through our emergency operations, there is plans in place for disasters, is how we would react as a community. So there are plans in place for things like that. I mean, a war is a bit extreme, but it does, things like that could jeopardize the borders and us being able to move around. So there are plans in place for things like that. We, regardless of what we have seen, our council has been aware of the world politics, and we have ensured that our departments have these plans in place should something happen. Go ahead. Sorry about that. I didn't realize there wasn't a front. So I have Rob, and then we're going to have to end up wrapping up for this evening. There is a bit of a difference. It's not that high, but there is some. Yeah.
because we're late, it doesn't mean we get this already. It's every time you turn around. Listen to the board. That we're not doing it.
Yeah.
I'm sure if everybody lives, look around and think, what do I want?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I think that's what we need to counsel. So it's really good and look at
Yeah, no, that's a good recommendation. We can take that under consideration to be able to get a better study on some of these areas that are affected by it. So. Yeah. Is it? No kidding me. Okay. All right, thank you. I'm just going to have to, oh, I'm sorry. Yes. I'm sorry, Paula. All right, so I just have to read a resolution for the record to approve and accept the general meeting minutes of May 25th, 2017. Could I have a mover? Tim, second by Troy. Discussion? Questions been called? All in favor? It's carried. So our next general meeting will take place on July 20th at the Inolago Arena on Cornwall Island. Our district meetings are Ogre, July 10th, Gisnaina, July 12th, and Ganadago, July 17th. So with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Joel, second by Connie. All in favor? All right. Thank you very much for attending this evening.